Good morning, everyone. My name's Ian Rudge, and welcome to Bravo 22, and it's live. I don't know why I like saying that. I just do, I'm an idiot. Anyhow, this is made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project. Once again, can you all please get your friends to like and share on Facebook and subscribe, please, because it wouldn't be the same without you. Anyway, I'm going to forge ahead because I want to watch this myself. We are going to watch a live demonstration by artist and lecturer Marc Woodhead. He'll be chatting as he does this to our very own art director, Al Johnson. So without further ado, over to you, Al.
Thank you, Ian. Lovely to see you and for your lovely introduction. Today, as Ian said, we've got the wonderful Marc Woodhead, who's not an old friend, but a friend of long stature, a good friend of mine and a fellow lecturer. And he's going to talk about he's also a painter, a very accomplished painter, and he's going to talk about one of his favourite artists. Welcome, Marc.
Hello, Al. Thank you very much for inviting me into this.
You're very welcome.
Delighted to be here this morning. I've chosen a painting to draw, which is an interesting thing to do. I think we can learn a lot by people. People often ask me, how can we learn? How can we improve our drawing skills? And I always say, look at great works of art. And so this morning I've chosen a painting that I absolutely love to make a drawing of, to make a study of. And it's by a French artist called Corot. So we're going to maybe chat about him during the course of the drawing. Can we have a look? Can we perhaps have a look at the?
Let's have a look at the painting. So this is image one. This is the painting that Marc has chosen. Tell us about it then. Tell us why it's your favourite painting.
It's when we come to draw it, when we come to start, it's actually quite a long rectangle. It's twice as long as it is wide, and hopefully you can see that it's called the Marsh at Arleux, or Arleux, and it's grey, it's cloudy, it's the sky is particularly fascinating, but it's got this wonderful streak of light coming through the centre of the picture, of the painting, which is really a challenge for us to try and draw. The light, it's a marshland. The bottom land area of the picture is about a third, the lower third of the picture, just approximately. And the light is breaking through, and it's when you look at this picture, you have to determine which parts are mud, earth, and which parts are water. And in the watery area, in one of the watery parts of the picture, you've got this kind of silvery reflected streak of light on the surface of the water. Now, to draw this, when Corot was painting this, he used white paint, so he used a strip of white paint. But to draw it, we're going to have to leave that area and work around it, and we're going to make a kind of a tonal drawing, we call it, which is really it's using shading. It's applying areas of just shading in, but we've got to work around that area. So it's everything else needs to have some application of shading with our pencils. And we need to work around that area. So that's kind of one of the challenges of this drawing. Can I just say, wonder if we can just we've got a sort of a demo camera, haven't we?
Yes.
And I wonder if we can just show you.
Can we go over to the demo camera? So what Marc's going to do, actually, that's wonderful. What Marc's going to do is to demonstrate on this he's very, very cleverly set this up for us. So he's going to demonstrate. Now, if you've got pencils and paper to hand, and I think Ian has. Have you, Ian?
I have, mate. I'm ready and willing and waiting.
He's been briefed in advance. If you haven't, you might want to come back to the YouTube video later and try this. So, Marc, show us how this is done.
What I was going to say, Al, is I'm using a very soft pencil. You can use any pencil for this, but just to say, I'm sure, just to remind you, you've got that range of pencils where you go from the hardest one is 9H, and HB is kind of in the middle, and then the softest one would be a 9B. And Al, I did remember to look up what this. Did you look up what a B stands for?
No, I forgot. I forgot immediately. But
well,
so tell us.
It stands for black. So, I thought it was going to be some kind of Latin name, or for meaning soft or something, but it's the softest one. It's the blackest one. So
Mark and I were discussing why H obviously means hard, but what does B mean? We should have thought it through, shouldn't we?
I knew that.
You knew that. Good.
Wonderful. Okay, so I've got my pencil and I've got a sketchbook here that is it's A5. I mean, I've gone quite small because I'm going to apply some shading to get the overall effect, to leave this white area in the center of the picture. And I've just roughly sketched out this length here. This is the width is half of the length. On this page, it's an A5 page, but that is 4 inches and this is 8. But this is just an approximate start, just to give you a guideline. It's quite a long, thin shape. Ian, you were saying just our friends are going to be working in all sorts of different sizes, and you can go big, you can go smaller, but that's just an approximation, isn't it? Just to start.
Yeah, that's fine then.
So I'm just going to start in the sky. So this horizon line here, about a third of the way, and I'm just looking, and that's something else I wanted just to tell you. It's just about holding the pencil. I'm trying not to hold it too firmly. I suppose you'd hold it like that to make some kind of detailed line drawing. I'm trying to relinquish a bit of control. And I think this is how Corot went about painting. He held his brush quite loosely. So
the pencil has got a sort of element of taking itself where it wants, hasn't it? You're not completely controlling what the pencil does.
That's a nice way of saying it, Al. I like that. I was trying to get my pencil to wake up this morning as well. So it's not this idea of having a life of its own.
I love that problem.
Does it give you a softer line holding the pencil more loosely?
I'm just letting it almost, it's so soft, this one. It's like charcoal pencil. And I'm also letting it brush against the page, almost like on its side, It's
interesting because there's a great sort of fluidity about the painting, isn't there? And your marks are very fluid, the way you're sort of moving across the page.
I think his work, one of the things I love about his work is it's full of energy. He can paint very skillfully, but he's leaving the marks showing. So and there are all sorts of different marks which we'll come on to, which I hope maybe you can see in the print as well, just by the sketchbook here. They're going in different directions, and he's creating a sense of space, I think, with the directions, as he's painting. So it's a very subtle painting, isn't it? Was that something you chose because you're drawing in monochrome, aren't you? Yes. Was the choice of the painting partly to do with that, do you think? Is it good to choose a painting that doesn't have a huge amount of colour when you're drawing, do you think? Or doesn't it matter? I think that's a lovely question. It's it's hard to draw and talk. Do you know? Multitasking.
I'll do the talking. I'm How's Ian getting on?
I'm doing okay at the minute. Can show you that on mine. I don't know if you can see it.
Ian's drawing.
So far, so good, I think.
Lovely. Those of you that are joining in at the moment, it's really lovely, isn't it, to watch somebody drawing. I think with people have said this before, that it's incredibly therapeutic to watch somebody drawing. There's such a sense of kind of stillness almost, watching the drawing develop. So what are you doing now with Marc, with the drawing?
yeah, just trying to get this horizon line where you've got this massive sort of hills, trees, and then this group of trees on the left-hand side. Just trying to indicate that.
I wonder if we can just go back for a minute to the image.
Yeah.
Ian, if we can just have a look at the image again, and you can see there it's very, very subtle, isn't it? That horizon and the trees, very soft colours.
That right-hand side, it's where you've got that bank, a sort of hill with forest, I think. You've got a sort of a hint of a sort of mist. It's just the edges of things. It creates this atmosphere, this sense of space, but also a sense of atmosphere, the humidity in the air.
Yes, it's a sort of haze almost, isn't it?
Yeah. To your question, Al, about the about the greys. I mean, it is wonderfully. It's got this all the picture apart from this area of the streak, the silvery streak of light, which I'm just going to draw around here now.
So you're leaving that really as a gap, aren't you? You're letting the white paper be the silver.
That's it.
Mark.
I've got to really lose the rest of the white paper in the end in order to get this to shine, as it were. Now, this is where it gets really interesting down in the foreground because he's using marks in all sorts of different ways. I'll just describe a couple as I'm drawing, but
yeah, it's lovely. The looking at the image, how really interesting how many kinds of marks there are on there, how many kinds of paint marks there are.
Oh, now this is the thing about drawing and drawing another work of art. It really makes you look, doesn't it? And you can learn. Yeah,
absolutely. It used to be in the National Gallery. Occasionally now you have people come in with it's just reopened actually, but occasionally you have people with easels set up. But it used to be absolutely essential for your training as an artist to copy the old masters. And it was part of an art school training that you would spend years often copying old masters, and we don't do it so much now. You think it's a really important thing to do, Mark? Do you?
Absolutely.
I think it's really essential
to draw something. You really have to look.
Yeah, it's all about observation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think what we should do perhaps is, Ian, if you can stop drawing for a minute. I'm sorry to stop you both drawing because it's so nice to watch. Ian, have we got any questions?
Yes, we have a question of Griff. Do you break your drawings into 3 parts as a rule, Mark?
No, not at all. It's almost that sort of very pleasing proportion is used. So many artists use this. This is sort of a golden rule, isn't it, of proportions. It's very pleasing. Lots of Dutch painters did this as well. He plays with harmonies, I think, Corot, and it's a very harmonious composition in many ways, and at the same time very sort of humble and dank, sort of ordinary, but made magical with this amazing light. But in my work, no, not necessarily.
And Mark, do you prefer to draw in achromatic? That's from Graham. And what is it?
Say that again.
Do you prefer to draw in achromatic? Achromatic.
Would you think that might be sort of monochromatic, like just one colour?
I think black and white. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I'd love to make this drawing and then come back and do one in colour, because as Al said, it's a great one to turn into black and white, but look at the colours in the picture as well. I mean, we can talk about colours, can't we? Even though we're drawing black. I mean, it's making me see the colours as well, but you're translating it into just one colour, which is hard enough just to understand it. We say tonally, but we just mean shade, the shade. But how would you describe Al or Ian, the grey in the sky? and the green in the marsh.
Yeah, the colours are very subtle, but it's like many paintings that are very subtly coloured. When you spend time looking at it, you start to see more and more colour. And I think this is probably something you would do if you were looking at it's always more difficult on a screen, but if you're looking at the original painting, you would start to see the colours coming through, wouldn't you?
Mm.
Absolutely.
Any more questions, Graham?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, a shout out to Sally Ann. Nice to see you, Sally, and Claymore.
Wonderful.
So,
Al, could I just make one comment there?
Yeah.
What I've noticed is, well, a couple of things here. Sometimes he's going across with the watery areas, and sometimes he's going up and down. So he's almost weaving together, the different marks.
Yes.
And it gives you this sense of space.
How does that help with your image? The marks going in different directions. How does that help construct the image?
Well, these modern artists, and this is the really interesting thing about Corot, he's one generation older than the Impressionists, all those wonderful people, Monet and Monet, Degas, all those wonderful, Pizarro. They were really reminding us that this is paint on canvas, pencil on paper, and it's creating a sense of space, but it's also reminding us what it is on the page as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very modern approach. This artist could have blended everything together beautifully and evenly, but he's breaking it up, and to me, it's the energy in the landscape. It's the feeling of the landscape, and I'd love to ask Ian about how it feels for you, looking at this place, and maybe does this landscape remind you of anywhere? Anywhere do you have any memories of walking the landscape?
It looks like a dark and dank place. It takes me back to my training when I was in the Navy.
Yep.
On the moors and whatnot.
Which moors? Just out of interest.
Dartmoor.
Do you say Dartmoor?
Yeah. It was a long time ago now. I think I remember it just being dark and gloomy.
Where was this painted? You said it's at Allure, didn't you?
Yeah, I was struggling with that pronunciation. I suddenly realised at the beginning. It's in. There's a really interesting story here. It's if you Google it, it's in the northeast of France, and Corot, right in the last years of his life, there was the Franco-Prussian War, the siege of Paris, and he, as an older man, left the city and got an invite with a friend of his, and he sketched in the landscape while the war was going on. So he made a series of amazing works, and I wonder if this sort of stormy mood that's in this scene, these overhanging clouds, that what I'm trying to get here is this almost wall of thundery, cloudy humidity.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is on his mind, is what you're driving at, Al. Do
you think it's to do with mood? I mean, it's a very moody painting, isn't it?
Mm.
It's something that I think is a lovely thing when you work from another artist's work, from a painting, shall we say, as we're doing today. It's really your version, isn't it? So I'd really encourage people to make it, what they sense about this space and what it means to them and how they feel about it, and let that sort of weave that in to the drawing as well.
Because anywhere you like, for Ian, a reminder of Dartmoor, or anywhere that you might have been that feels a bit like this, there'll be an element of that, won't there, in your image? The image that you make will be partly from the painting, but partly from your own memories.
Memories, yeah. I think as you draw along, you look at different parts of it and you think, that reminds me of somewhere.
Yeah, makes connections.
Yeah, and
should we just have a look at Corot himself? Because Marc found this wonderful picture of Corot. So it's image 2. I love this picture because it's it's like Corot's been surprised by our entrance. He's just turned. He's quite old in this picture, isn't he, Marc?
Yes.
Do you know where that was taken?
I think it's around this same time, about 1870, 71.
Right.
Around the same time that he was painting this painting. I really get the sense of his warmth as a human being. He was very encouraging to the Impressionists and the younger artists. And there's a story which I love, which is that he often, younger artists sometimes studied his work in order to improve their skills. And so they sort of made painting studies in the style of Corot. And then we know that he signs some of them, many of them, so that the younger artists could sell them as his work.
Wow, that's very generous.
Very supportive, very generous. You know, it was more about encouraging the younger artists than being very precious about, you know.
Yeah. What a nice story about him.
Lovely, isn't it?
Marc,
have we got any questions?
Yes, you seem to be doing this all in one pencil.
Yeah.
If you was doing this at home, would you use an assortment of pencils and
just experimented with one. You could.
Yeah. That's from Sally Ann. And Dean Williams wanted to know, what is that work of art behind you? Is that a work in progress?
It is. They are some drawings I've been making in the lockdown of oak leaves. And I'm just in the studies, really. And actually, it's an interesting question because they're just line drawings instead of using shading. So I'm just looking at the outside lines and the way they're turning in space. And I plan to turn them into some prints. Could I just go back to the foreground here? Could we just, I don't know if it's possible to be able to see, because here along in the foreground, he's actually just used, it's painted in oil paint on canvas. He's scratched these marks into the surface.
Should we go back to image 1 again and just see if we can see that? That's fascinating, actually, that the marks in there. And how do you think he did that? So
I think it's just the paintbrush turned upside down, Al. And you know, I could ask you to have a look. And if anybody's got any thoughts they'd like to post in, what is he drawn with the end of his brush right there? What does it indicate? Or Ian, perhaps I can ask you about that.
Yes, it seems to indicate a flow of water. And from my training days, I remember falling down these holes on the moors and disappearing in some of them.
Oh.
You came back, so that's good.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the painting itself is very subtle, very soft and gentle, and then those marks are quite sort of clear, aren't they? They're quite almost harsh on the surface.
They are.
Because he was trying to get the sort of intensity of the water, do you think?
There is a suggestion that he might have sketched in a sort of a boat just in this area, and maybe reeds just in the light. Maybe he was going to work in it further and just left it.
Okay.
It's very kind of.
You could see towards the left-hand side. It could be, if we go back to image 1 again, you could see towards the left-hand side that it could be a boat sort of flowing in the water. It seems slightly at odds, doesn't it, with the subtlety of the remaining image. How would you do that in a drawing? Would you include that, Marc, or not? Those lines, because that's a tricky thing to do, isn't it? In a drawing.
Trying to, with a drawing like this, I'm trying to get at the spirit of Corot in a way. Not just try and make a copy. What does it mean to me? It's my version. But this spirit of there's a kind of, if I just put some loose marks in, these are sort of dark marks, aren't they? But they're quite sort of scrawly. You can see some of these marks are quite rough. the way he's using a sort of hog hair brush. But that also gives you a sense of detail in the foreground, and as it goes into the blurriness, there's more sort of blurriness into the background.
Yeah, I really like that the drawing is very obviously a drawing. You're not trying to replicate the paint, and I think that is probably a mistake, isn't it? We're drawing from painting. You're not trying to do a drawn painting. You're trying to do a drawing, aren't you?
Yes.
So you want it to be clearly a drawing, even though it's based on the painting. It's I like the painting is very soft, but you can, in the drawing, you can clearly see that the line, the drawn marks. Ian, how are you getting on with your drawing?
It's interesting. It seems to come together as you go along. It just
hold it up a little bit, Ian.
Up a bit.
Higher.
Oh, lovely.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
yeah, and I think if you just keep going at it, the shadows come into play, and it's fascinating the way it does, and it differs. From the skyline is different. It's different from the ground. The ground all of a sudden appears.
Are you finding, Ian, the more you look at it, the more you see?
Yeah, I see the flow of the water. Yeah, and there's been a recent downpour there, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting that about looking at paintings. This is something we've Mark and I have done for a long time at the National Galleries. We do a thing called Talk and Draw, where there's a little talk about a painting, kind of pretty much similar to what Mark's been doing today with you. And the thing that people most often say at the end of a talk and draw, where you do a drawing of a painting, is that they've really looked at the painting. By drawing it, you look at it in a different way. And I do recommend it, actually, I'm sure Mark does too, as a way of learning about painting and understanding it.
It's a great way of learning more. And just to say, Al, that if anybody is interested in really looking closely at the picture, if you go into the National Gallery website and use the zoom in facility on all the paintings, on this one, you'll find it easily. You can really look at small parts of the picture and really see the marks he's made, in perhaps more detail than we've been able to show you in the PowerPoint. We're coming to.
I've put some links. Sorry, Mark, I interrupted you. I've put a link to that, to the image on the website, actually, on the Bravo 22 YouTube. So
Mark,
yes, Ian.
Would you use finger shading on something like this? That's from Claymore. And would you use maybe a fence line, maybe? That's from Sally Ann and Griff. Same question, actually.
That's a really good idea. Thank you for that. It's working quite well. It's getting the tone going a bit quicker. God, brilliant. Thank you.
So a bit of finger shading there. I think finger shading, you just got to be a bit careful because it can turn muddy, can't it?
Yeah.
Mark, how much longer would you? Because we're nearly at the end of our session. How much more time would you spend on that drawing?
I'm not far off. You can overwork them.
Yes.
It would have been nice to have, say, maybe 5-10 more minutes. I think
you would probably spend another 10 minutes or so on that.
I think so. Just looking at what I would normally do is stand away from it, put it on the other side of the room and have a good look, come away and just see how it's working, the light and shade, and just nudge things. And at this point, it's just working across the whole picture, just to emphasize or smudge or push back something or pull something a little bit. But don't go. It's quite rough and ready, isn't it? The way it's been made. So try and keep that effect. I think
it's absolutely beautiful. I think your recommendation about looking, standing back and looking at a drawing that's really important, isn't it? Because we're so close when we're drawing. So if you can just put it on the other side of the room, step away, just sort of almost, surreptitiously look at it, try and catch yourself out looking at it. Sometimes that helps, doesn't it? To kind of see what else it needs. It's absolutely beautiful. Ian, have we got any other questions? Because I think we're almost at the end of our time.
We've got an observation. Christine Thomas said she thought it looked like machinery.
Oh, do you mean the scratching in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I can see that. It looks a bit industrial in the drawing, I think. This is where the colours are so beautiful, aren't they? I mean, in the sky, with more time and something, you could try just bringing these kind of olivey greens and browns in the foreground, and then I think they're almost like lilac-y purple greys, aren't they, in the sky? Sort of a dove grey.
If you were doing a colour version of this, would you use colour pencil, or pastels? What would you use?
Both would work well. A bit bigger for pastel, I would think. But lovely colour pencil drawing, and you could go a bit bigger, couldn't you, with more time? It just takes. I've gone sort of smallish
because of the time.
It takes a while. It's lovely building up these layers.
Yeah.
I think you get this kind of sense of atmosphere.
And it's something that is available to everyone, actually, because the National Galleries certainly, and most of the major galleries have all the collections on their websites. So and many of the galleries have this Zoom facility, so you can kind of look into the picture, look at details, can't you? So this is available to all of us to draw from great masterpieces, isn't it?
I can see people going out on the moors for a day with a sketchbook.
Yeah.
Filling a sketchbook. Yeah.
We're short of moors in London, though, Ian.
Yeah.
You've got some up your way.
Well, we've got quite a few, yes.
We've got a few parks. We haven't got any moors. Mark, I'd just like to thank you. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you so much. And the drawing is beautiful, actually, really exquisite. And so is your drawing, Ian, actually. You've both done beautiful.
Cheers, mate.
Let's have a look at that. Wow. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Really enjoyed that.
So much. Fantastic, Mark. It's always a pleasure to watch artists working, and a sort of, to get a genuine insight into how something is made is always so fascinating. So thank you very much, Mark. Good job.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Ian. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very welcome. I'm going to hand you back to Ian. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you very much for watching. And I'll hand you back to Ian for his final words. Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks very much, Al. That was very enjoyable. Thank you, Mark. And if I'd like to wrap up now, on Monday, we're back with another Have a Brew with Bravo 22 at 11 a.m. So if you want to join, email Alice Palmer at thedriveproject.co.uk today. And on Tuesday, we have a session dedicated to Shakespeare with the amazing Kate Beals and Tip Cullen. So tune in at 11 o'clock. And on Thursday, we have Al Johnson again, and Sarah Howarth, exploring another masterpiece, this time by Blake. So don't forget to tune in at 11 a.m. Once again, thanks for joining us, and see you next time. Bye.